Kamala Harris, the top prosecutor against the convicted felon. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrat prosecutor Bragg, Soros guy, a Biden acting state judge, Merchan, gave the Democrats what they wanted to run on. And the media are all excited about it. They're perfectly fine with this. But much of America is not. Look at Kamala Harris. She will now get the nomination without a challenge. You want to know why? Because if they had actually had an open primary, if Joe Biden hadn't run for re-election in the primary process, she wouldn't be the nominee. That's why. They want Kamala Harris because they like the Biden-Harris policies. They want Kamala Harris because they want the extreme Marxist Islamist agenda. She's made it abundantly clear in the last 36 hours that she stands with the river to the sea crowd. She's made it very clear that she wouldn't meet with Netanyahu, the prime minister of the only Jewish state on the face of the earth that is surrounded and under attack by terrorists. She's a radical. That's why she didn't get the nomination. She's still a radical. And the media that lie to you all the time about Russia collusion and the Hunter laptop and about Biden's cognitive sharpness will lie to you and are lying to you again. Now, I've asked on the internet, how many cases has Kamala Harris actually prosecuted, that is, litigated herself at the trial level or the appellate level? I've asked. We know there's stalkers out there watching me on the internet, like over at Mediocreite, a lying bunch of prepubescent, low IQ, pathetic buffoons, but nonetheless, they don't have an answer. CNN doesn't have an answer. MSNBC doesn't have an answer. The New York Slimes, the Washington Compost, they don't have an answer. CBS, NBC, ABC, they don't have an answer. We're waiting for the Harris campaign to tell us how many. She was assistant DA in San Francisco, DA in San Francisco, Attorney General for the state of California. We're told she's a tough on-crime prosecutor, or maybe not. And I'm asking, well, what did she personally ever prosecute? What were the cases? We'd like to look at them. Maybe there's 1,000 of them. Good. We'd like to look at those too. So what are they? Other than being an assistant DA, she was elected DA of San Francisco. Very tough on crime city, as you well know. Okay, what cases? What cases did she litigate? She's a tough prosecutor. As Attorney General for the state of California, what courtrooms did she walk into? What cases did she litigate at the trial or the appellate level? We want to know. We want to know about this female Effley Bailey. But we do know this, that when she oversaw prosecutions, her record is a disaster. That's right, a disaster. We look back. 5 times prosecutor Kamala Harris got the wrong guy. And she didn't give a damn. Elena Goodman. I believe this is the Washington Examiner. Kamala Harris has been facing criticism, and this is written a few years back, from fellow Democrats over her criminal justice record during her times as a top California prosecutor. During last month's Democratic debate, for example, Tulsi Gabbard slammed Harris for blocking DNA testing that could have exonerated death row inmate Kevin Cooper while she was DA of San Francisco. Cooper was convicted of murdering Douglas and Peggy Ryan, their 10-year-old daughter, and Jessica, and 11-year-old Christopher Hughes, a family friend of the Ryans, during a home invasion in the Chino Hills area in 1983. The past 15 years, his attorneys have been fighting for advanced testing of DNA evidence, which they claim could have exonerated their client, a move that was opposed by Harris while she was Attorney General of California. Last year, again, this is a few years old, after the case was publicized by the New York Times' Nick Kristof, who, of course, is all in her camp now, Harris backtracked and told the paper that she felt awful about this and now supports the testing, but did not explain what prompted her to change her opinion. The Cooper saga is not the only case where Harris has pitted herself against a culprit who claims to have been wrongfully convicted. Here are 5 other times where Harris has bucked against criminal justice reform advocates. Number 1, when her staff prosecuted a reality star who was framed by police. That's right, Kamala Harris was DA of San Francisco in February 2010 when 29-year-old Jamal Trulove, a former reality star and aspiring hip-hop artist, was convicted of murdering 28-year-old Sue Kuka based on the testimony of one witness. After Trulove was sentenced to 50 years in prison, Harris praised the brave eyewitness for the conviction, but failed to mention the woman had been paid over $60,000 by the prosecution and given new housing under the Witness Protection Program. An appeals court later overturned the verdict after finding that prosecutors working under Harris as the DA misrepresented the witness to the jury. Trulove was awarded a $13 million settlement from the city due to allegations of police misconduct, including manipulating the witness and fabricating evidence. I didn't hear this today on MSLSD or CNN. I didn't read it. A mediocreite. Well, you're hearing it here. Number 2, her office defended the sexual assault conviction of an electrician based on a technicality. Harris was Attorney General of California in 2015 when her office fought to uphold a sexual assault conviction against a former electrician named George Gage. Gage, 79, had been found guilty of sexually abusing his ex-wife's daughter in 1999, and he was serving a 70-year sentence. Gage appealed, and a judge determined that prosecutors had withheld exculpatory evidence, including the accuser's medical records and a statement from her mother calling her a pathological liar. They withheld it from the jury. Harris's office successfully fought against a retrial on a procedural technicality, and Gage is still in prison as of the writing of this piece. Number 3, when she fought compensation for a wrongfully convicted gang shooter. In 2002, Rafael Madrigal was convicted of a drive-by gang shooting and the attempted murder of Ricardo Aguilera in East L.A. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. 7 years later, a federal judge tossed the conviction due to inadequate legal defense by Madrigal's attorney. The court found that Madrigal's lawyer failed to introduce exculpatory evidence, including several alibis that said he was 35 miles away at work during the time of the attempted murder. Now, after his release from prison, he asked the California Victim Compensation Government Claims Board to compensate him $282,000 for the wrongful conviction. Kamala Harris, the state attorney general at the time, recommended the board deny his request, arguing he had not sufficiently proven his innocence. Number 4, when her office sought to retry a man who'd been set up by police in 1992, Camarade Conley was arrested for a drive-by gang shooting that killed 2 men in San Francisco. Excuse me. After the prosecution's key witness testified that 18-year-old Conley had privately confessed to the murder, Conley was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Although the witness denied under oath that he'd been compensated as part of the case, a subsequent investigation found that a detective had in fact paid the witness. The witness has also been given housing by the prosecution and placed in a witness protection program. In December 2010, a judge vacated Conley's conviction, citing voluminous evidence the witness had lied. Harris was serving as DA of San Francisco at the time, and her office initially sought to retry the case, according to reports. 1 month later, after she left to start her new role as California Attorney General, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office agreed not to retry Conley. He later received $3.5 million settlement from the city for wrongful conviction. These are just some examples. Number 5, when she fought to keep a misidentified neo-Nazi in prison after his case was tossed. In 1998, a neo-Nazi gang member named Daniel Larson was convicted of possession of a concealed weapon and sentenced to 27 years in prison. Now, police officers said they saw Larson throw a 6-inch knife used under a car, during a confrontation outside an L.A. bar. After the trial, 9 eyewitnesses, including a North Carolina cop, came forward to dispute that Larson had been the man holding the knife. A judge determined in 2010 that Larson's original attorney had failed to interview any witnesses at all and overturned the conviction. And despite the ruling, Harris, as state attorney general, blocked Larson's release for 2 years. And after Larson was finally let out, Harris appealed his release by arguing he missed a paperwork deadline. The great prosecutor. She's a tough prosecutor, the New York Times says today, up against a convicted felon. See how phony this is? Donald Trump, convicted felon? First of all, he's appealing. Secondly, that whole case was a Stalinist farce by the Democrat Party. So they do that to run on it. And then she's being built up as this great prosecutor. I've prosecuted many cases. I've seen his kind. First of all, it looks like you haven't prosecuted much at all. You've been the head of offices, but I want to dig into this. And I'm urging the media, help me. Let's find this stuff. Let's all read it together. And let the chips fall where they may. But so far, nothing. And yet those are 5 major cases. Then we have this. Not too old. Kamala Harris-backed Freedom Fund that put murderers, rapists back on streets, still up and running. A bail fund once backed by Vice President Kamala Harris during the 2020 presidential campaign that helped free violent criminals. Violent criminals is back in the spotlight, as the website appears to still be taking in donations. As of this Monday night, the website was still running and accepting payments. If you're able to, chip in now to the MN, that's Minnesota Freedom Fund, to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. Harris posted on X, then Twitter, back in 2020, urging people to donate to the fund during the 2020 campaign. Harris promoted the bail fund in June 2020 to help bail out Black Lives Matter rioters out of jail, but only a fraction of the more than $41 million actually went to freeing the rioters. Minnesota-based Fox 9 reported the fund spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to free an alleged knife murderer and a convicted rapist who was facing charges of sexual assault and kidnapping, among others. Another criminal, George Howard, 48, also reaped the benefits of the funds. He allegedly became involved in a road rage altercation on Interstate 94 entrance ramp before he shot another driver, according to Minnesota police, weeks after bailing out on domestic assault charges. It goes on. On August 24, he was charged and so forth. The Minnesota Freedom Fund tweeted Friday admitting its role in putting Howard back on the streets. And, of course, they put other thugs, criminals, and so forth on the streets. Kamala Harris backed the Freedom Fund that put these murderers and rapists back on the streets, and it's still up. Oh, she's a tough prosecutor. Alex Soros, who's been backing all these Soros prosecutors, said, let's unite around Kamala Harris. Wait a minute. What does he know that we don't know?